The identical 17-year-old twins, Maya and Kira Williams, exchanged that look, the one they'd perfected after years of facing similar situations. When Maya finally pulled out her phone, Kira whispered urgently, "Call him. Now." Neither girl could have imagined that this single phone call wouldn't just solve their boarding problem. It would ground every aircraft in Skywings Airline's massive fleet and expose decades of systematic racial bias that had been carefully hidden from public view. Maya and Kira Williams stood patiently in the bustling departure lounge at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, their excitement barely contained beneath their composed exteriors. As valedictorian and salutatorian respectively at Lincoln Academy Prep, this college recruitment trip to Atlanta represented more than just university visits. It was their first solo journey, a sign of their father's growing trust in their maturity and independence. What the hurried travelers rushing past them couldn't possibly know was that David Williams wasn't just any concerned parent. He was the recently appointed Chief Executive Officer of Skywings Airlines, a position he deliberately kept private to protect his family from unwanted attention and, more importantly, to allow him an authentic assessment of the company's true culture without the artificial deference his title would command. The twins carried first-class tickets, a practical decision their father had made to ensure their comfort and safety during travel, not a display of wealth or privilege. Dressed in matching university hoodies, comfortable jeans, and well-maintained sneakers, they appeared like typical teenagers embarking on an adventure. Their identical faces, framed by elegant twist-outs, radiated excitement and nervous energy. The line at the Skywings premium check-in counter moved steadily until the twins reached the front. The agent, a middle-aged white man whose nameplate read Brad Morrison, looked straight past them to the passengers standing behind, completely ignoring their presence. "Next!" he called out dismissively, gesturing for a white couple to step around the twins. Brad immediately began processing the couple's tickets with an enthusiastic smile. "Heading to Miami today? Perfect weather down there this time of year." Kira cleared her throat politely. "Excuse me, sir, we were next in line." Brad's friendly demeanor vanished instantly, his eyes narrowing as he finally acknowledged their presence. "You'll wait your turn," he said curtly, continuing to type on his keyboard for the couple he was helping. "But we were standing here first," Maya said calmly but firmly. "We've been waiting for 20 minutes. Brad's jaw tightened visibly. "I'll be with you when I'm ready." The twins waited as Brad deliberately took his time with the couple, making extensive small talk about Miami attractions while shooting occasional dismissive glances at the teenagers. After the couple departed with their boarding passes, 4 more white passengers were helped before Brad finally, reluctantly, motioned the twins forward. "Tickets and identification," he snapped, avoiding eye contact. Maya placed their first-class boarding passes and student identification cards on the counter. Brad's eyebrows shot up dramatically as he examined the tickets. "First class? Are you certain you're at the correct counter?" His tone suggested they must have made some sort of mistake. "Yes, our father purchased these tickets for us," Kira explained patiently. "We're visiting universities in Atlanta." Brad picked up their boarding passes with obvious skepticism, handling them as if they might be contaminated. "These don't appear legitimate. Where exactly did you acquire these?" His implication was crystal clear. He suspected the tickets were fraudulent. "Our father purchased them directly from Skywings," Maya said, her patience beginning to wear thin. "Is there some kind of problem?" Brad's lips pressed into a thin, disapproving line. "I'll need to verify these thoroughly. Student IDs are insufficient identification for first-class travel." Behind them, the line was growing longer, and people were starting to stare and whisper. We're 17, Kira explained. We don't have driver's licenses yet. Our father was specifically told that student IDs would be sufficient for domestic flights when he made the reservation. Brad signed him dramatically, as if dealing with difficult children. Well, someone misinformed your father. Wait here. He disappeared into a back office with their tickets and identification. The twins stood awkwardly at the counter for nearly 20 minutes, while other agents continued helping passengers who had arrived after them. They could hear occasional laughter from the office where Brad had vanished. Finally, he returned, slapping down 2 boarding passes and their IDs with obvious displeasure. "There was an error in our system," he announced loudly enough for nearby passengers to hear clearly. "You've been reassigned to economy class, boarding at gate 18. Maya examined the boarding passes, her brow furrowing in confusion. "But these aren't the seats our father reserved. We're supposed to be in first class." Brad leaned forward, lowering his voice to a threatening whisper. "Listen carefully. I don't know what kind of scheme you two are trying to pull, but certain people need to understand that first class isn't for everyone. You should be grateful you're getting on the plane at all." The security checkpoint presented another gauntlet of humiliation. While white passengers glided through the standard screening with minimal fuss, the twins found themselves randomly selected for additional screening by TSA agent Christina Torres. "Is this really necessary?" Maya asked politely. "We have a flight to catch and we're already behind schedule." Christina's expression hardened immediately. "Are you questioning federal security protocols? Because I can make this significantly more difficult if you'd prefer." Her hand hovered meaningfully over her radio, a clear threat that she could escalate the situation at any moment. "No, ma'am," Kira replied quickly, shooting her sister a warning glance. "We understand." The enhanced screening was nothing short of degrading. Christina roughly searched through their carefully packed belongings, deliberately scraping Maya's laptop against the table's edge and reading private notes from their journals. When she discovered Kira's prescription medication, she spilled the pills across the table as if she'd found illegal drugs. "What are these?" she demanded suspiciously. "Adderall," Kira explained calmly, "for my ADHD. The prescription information is right there on the bottle." Christina ignored the explanation, setting the medication aside for further inspection before moving on to conduct invasive pat-downs that made both girls intensely uncomfortable. By the time the enhanced screening was complete, nearly an hour had passed. Their belongings had been carelessly repacked, Maya's laptop was visibly damaged, and they were dangerously close to missing their flight. With their boarding time still 90 minutes away, the twins decided to grab lunch at Cloud9 Bistro, an airport restaurant advertising fresh ingredients and quick service. The hostess, a blonde woman whose name tag read Jennifer Walsh, looked up from her phone as they approached. Her welcoming smile disappeared the moment she saw them. "How many?" she asked, her tone noticeably colder than it had been for the white family she'd just seated. "2, please," Maya replied. Jennifer made an elaborate show of checking her tablet. "There's going to be about an hour wait for a table," she announced without looking up. Kira glanced pointedly at the numerous empty tables clearly visible throughout the restaurant. "But there are several empty tables right there," she observed, keeping her voice polite but firm. Jennifer's lips thinned into a hard line. "Those are all reserved," she replied curtly. The twins exchanged knowing looks. This wasn't their first encounter with the mysterious reserved table excuse. "Your website states that you don't accept reservations," Maya pointed out, pulling up the restaurant's page on her phone. "It says right here, Cloud9 Bistro operates on a first-come, first-served basis." Jennifer's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. "Well, the website is outdated. We do accept reservations now, and all those tables are spoken for." As if choreographed, a white couple entered behind the twins. Without even acknowledging the ongoing conversation, Jennifer's demeanor brightened immediately. "Two for lunch? Right this way, please." She grabbed two menus and escorted the couple to one of the supposedly reserved tables. By the time Maya and Kira approached Gate 18, they had managed to eat a quick meal from a food truck and emotionally regroup. After their restaurant experience, they had visited a customer service desk where a harried agent had grudgingly corrected their boarding passes back to first class, offering no explanation or apology for the system error. Now, with proper boarding passes in hand, they approached their gate with cautious optimism. Perhaps the worst was behind them. They couldn't have been more wrong. The gate agent, a stern-faced white man whose name tag identified him as Robert Chen, was directing first-class passengers through the boarding lane when the twins presented their passes. His professional smile evaporated instantly as he examined their tickets. "There appears to be a significant problem here," he announced loudly enough to draw attention from nearby passengers. "Please step aside while I verify these boarding passes." Kira's patience had been stretched to its absolute limit. "What problem? We've already had our seats changed once today without any explanation. A customer service representative just corrected them. What possible issue could there be now?" Robert's eyes narrowed dangerously. "I'm going to need to see some identification," he demanded, completely ignoring her question. The twins produced their student IDs once again. Robert inspected them with theatrical scrutiny, turning them over repeatedly, holding them up to the light as if checking for watermarks, all while continuing to process other first-class passengers with barely a glance at their documentation. "These don't look authentic," he finally declared. "Student IDs can be easily fabricated." "They're official IDs from Lincoln Academy Preparatory School," Maya explained, struggling to maintain her composure. "They have the school seal, our photographs, everything. Skywings confirmed they were acceptable ID for domestic travel when our father booked the tickets." Robert's response was to reach for the PA system microphone. "Security to Gate 18, please. Security to Gate 18. The announcement echoed through the terminal, causing nearby passengers to stare and begin recording the confrontation with their phones. "This is discrimination," Kira stated firmly, no longer willing to pretend this was all just a series of unfortunate misunderstandings. "We have legitimate tickets and identification. You're targeting us because we're black. That's illegal." Robert's face flushed red with anger. "That's a serious accusation, young lady. I could have you permanently banned from this airport for making false claims against airline personnel. I'm simply following standard security protocols." Seated on a bench in a quiet corner of the terminal, far from Gate 18 and the flight that should have carried them to Atlanta, Maya finally pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she navigated to her father's contact. "He's going to be in that crucial board meeting," Kira reminded her, though her tone suggested she no longer cared about the interruption. "I know," Maya replied, "but this has gone far beyond what we can handle ourselves." She pressed the call button and put the phone on speaker. To their surprise, David Williams answered almost immediately. "Maya? Everything all right, sweetheart?" His deep, reassuring voice nearly brought both girls to tears. "Dad," Maya began, struggling to keep her voice steady, "we couldn't get on the flight. They refused to let us board." There was a moment of silence before David responded, his tone careful and measured. "Tell me exactly what happened, from the very beginning." For the next several minutes, the twins took turns detailing their experience. The check-in encounter with Brad Morrison, the TSA screening with Christina Torres, the restaurant incident with Jennifer Walsh, and finally the gate confrontation with Robert Chen. Throughout their account, David remained silent, though they could hear his controlled breathing growing more deliberate as the story unfolded. When they mentioned how their first-class seats had been revoked, then restored, only to be threatened again at the gate, they heard what sounded like a coffee mug being slammed down in the background. "Dad?" Kira ventured when they'd finished. "Are you still there?" "I'm here," David replied, his voice unnaturally calm. "Did you get the names of everyone involved?" "Yes," Maya confirmed. "We wrote down names and employee numbers whenever we could." "Good," David said. "Very good." Then, after a brief pause, "Girls, there's something I need to tell you. Something I probably should have mentioned before you left." The twins exchanged puzzled glances. "What is it, Dad?" David took a deep breath. "The reason I was so specific about you flying Skywings, the reason I purchased first-class tickets, is because I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Skywings Airlines." Stunned silence filled the connection between them. "You're what?" Kira finally managed to whisper. "I was appointed 8 weeks ago," David explained. "The board brought me in to transform the company after their previous leadership scandals. But I wanted to assess the airline's culture authentically, without my position influencing how employees behaved. That's why I kept it confidential, why I used my personal credit card to book your tickets instead of the executive travel system." "Wait," Maya interjected, her voice rising. "So this entire time we were being treated like this?" "You were the CEO's daughters," David finished, his voice tight with controlled fury. "Being discriminated against by people who had no idea who you were or what they were really dealing with." "What are we supposed to do now?" Kira asked. "Our flight's gone, and even if we could get another one—" "Don't move," David instructed firmly. "Stay exactly where you are. I'm implementing Emergency Protocol Alpha right now. You'll see what that means very shortly. And keep your phone on. Record everything that happens from this point forward." The line went quiet for a moment as they heard their father issuing rapid commands to someone else in the room. When he returned to the call, his voice had developed a steel edge they'd rarely heard before. "In about 3 minutes, you're going to start receiving calls from airline executives. They're going to offer you everything imaginable. Private jets, helicopter transfers, luxury accommodations. Don't accept anything. Tell them you're waiting for my direct instructions only. Understand?" "Yes," the twins replied in unison, still trying to process this stunning revelation. "Good. Stay strong. I'll be in constant contact, and this will all be resolved soon. I love you both." True to their father's prediction, Maya's phone rang barely 2 minutes later. The caller ID showed Skywings Executive Office. Before she could answer, Kira's phone also began ringing with a similar display. As predicted, panicked airline executives were on the other end, offering immediate assistance, private transportation, luxury accommodations, anything and everything to make amends for the unfortunate misunderstanding. Following their father's instructions, the twins politely but firmly declined all offers, stating they were awaiting direct instructions from David Williams only. The departure boards throughout the terminal began flickering, drawing confused glances from travelers. Then, like dominoes falling, flight after flight began showing the same status update. Delayed, return to gate. The announcements began moments later, echoing through the terminal with increasing urgency. "Attention Skywings Airlines passengers. Due to an executive-ordered safety protocol verification, all Skywings flights currently on taxiways or at gates are being held. Passengers already boarded are asked to remain seated. We apologize for the inconvenience and will provide updates as they become available." All around them, confusion spread through the terminal as travelers consulted their phones, checked the boards repeatedly, and approached increasingly frantic gate agents for explanations. The agents themselves appeared bewildered, frantically checking their computer terminals as more commands filtered down from corporate headquarters. Through their still-open phone line, the twins could hear their father issuing rapid-fire directives to what sounded like an entire crisis management team. "I want every flight grounded, every single aircraft. I don't care if they're halfway through takeoff. Get them back to the gates. And I want the Chicago station manager in my office via video conference in 10 minutes. "Dad," Kira ventured tentatively, "what exactly are you doing?" "Exercising my authority as CEO," David replied grimly. "The only way to get the attention of an entire system is to shut it down completely. Right now, every Skywings flight across the country is returning to its gate for mandatory safety verification. That's over 400 aircraft and roughly 60,000 passengers." The scale of his response left the twins momentarily speechless. Their father had essentially paralyzed an entire airline, one of the nation's largest carriers, in response to the discrimination they had faced. In the luxurious penthouse offices of Skywings Airline's largest investor, Victoria Sterling slammed her manicured fist on her mahogany desk as her assistant delivered the catastrophic news. "He did what?" she shrieked, her carefully maintained composure cracking. "Mr. Williams has implemented Emergency Protocol Alpha, ma'am," the assistant replied nervously. "All Skywings flights have been grounded for safety verification. The stock is already down 15% and continues falling." Victoria Sterling, billionaire investor and Skywings board member, felt her carefully constructed empire trembling beneath her feet. She'd opposed David Williams's appointment as CEO from the beginning, arguing that the former tech executive lacked the proper cultural understanding for the airline industry. What she'd meant, though she would never say it directly, was that a black CEO didn't belong at the helm of a major airline. She'd been outvoted by board members desperate for Williams's reputation as a turnaround specialist, but she'd never accepted the decision. Now Williams had handed her the perfect opportunity to rectify that mistake. "Get me Patricia Morrison at Business Today," Victoria instructed, already calculating her next moves. Then conference in the other board members, not Williams, everyone else. Within minutes, Victoria had spun the narrative to the influential business reporter. David Williams was having a personal meltdown. Using his corporate authority to ground an entire airline over some perceived slight to his family, potentially breaching his fiduciary duty to shareholders in the process.